Hello, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to Go ESG ASEAN Corporate Sustainability Virtual Summit 2020. And thank you for still being here. Thank you for joining us on the first day of the conference. Remember, it is a two-day virtual conference. I'm going to tell you more about the second day of the conference. But coming up later today, this afternoon, we have two workshops. In a while, will be workshop number one, building resilient SMEs, SME Playbook. I guess that's why you're all here. And workshop two is scheduled at 4 p.m. Climate Actions as a global supplier. So do look out for those workshops for those of you who have registered for both workshops. And before I pass it over to Mr. Easy for workshop number one, just again to inform you and to remind you that this event is brought to you by UN Global Compact Network Malaysia with the support of our kind sponsors. Let me just mention them again. Sarawak Energy, Petronas, Capital Markets Malaysia, and Wheelstack. And Summit Partners, Tata Consultancy Services, SME Corp, and Matrade. So thank you to all the sponsors and of course our partners for being together to ensure the success of this Corporate Sustainability Virtual Summit 2020. Right, again, want to remind you of the second day of the conference. Don't forget to join us on the second day of the conference because we have more topics to be discussed, more interesting matters to be and subjects to be discussed during the panel sessions. Of course, we'll have also distinguished keynote speakers and the parallel sessions. And I think one thing which I need to mention and must remind you, very exciting about it, is the closing keynote by His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon, the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations. That's happening tomorrow on the second day of this virtual conference. Be sure to stay here, and it's wonderful to have you here again at the first day of the conference. Great to see how you are all so committed towards corporate sustainability. And I just want to add a quote by Bertrand Piccard before I pass to Izzy. And of course, Bertrand Piccard, he is the initiator and visionary behind Solar Impulse, the first aeroplane to fly around the world without fuel. He said, in the 21st century, the heroes are the people who will improve the quality of life, fight poverty, and introduce more sustainability. So I guess the fact that you are all here, you are heroes of the 21st century. Congratulations. Now, without further ado, Mr. Easy is waiting, so let me just pass it over to Mr. Easy for workshop number one, Building Resilient SMEs, SME Playbook. Enjoy the workshop, enjoy the rest of the day, have a pleasant day, and see you on the second day of the virtual conference. Over to you, Easy.
Hello everyone, my name is Easy Rudin. I'd like you to welcome to this session. Of course, it's named a workshop, but however, this is going to be more of a preview, and I'll be taking you through some of the tools that we've created for the purpose of helping SMEs to undertake their own sustainability journey. Global Compact Network Malaysia and Brunei has actually identified this gap in terms of how SMEs are unable to approach sustainability in the same way that the large corporations can. So being mindful or being cognizant of the fact, so what we've done is we've created this framework called MAJU, which is mission, activity, justification, and also upgrade for the purpose of making easy the journey for SMEs to undertake sustainability. Of course, sustainability can be a rather complex issue, but I think what we are doing here is to actually look at how we can demystify the complex sustainability. So as an introduction, what we've done is the sustainable, the SME SDG toolkit that we came up with is actually quite extensive. So if I were to take you through that, I think it will take more than the session that we have today. Probably will take about 2 days for me to actually really take you through the tools that we've made available to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the website introduce you to the various components and various topics that we have. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to deep dive on the Maju framework, because I think the Maju framework is what brings all the other tools together to complete the entire toolkit that you need for you to actually embark on your sustainability journey. Yeah. Okay. So having said that, so corporate sustainability, or in the context of what we're doing today or what we're talking about today, is actually more about business sustainability. And the reason I say this is simply because, again, SMEs do not have the kind of resources to undertake or to approach sustainability like large corporations can. Therefore, they need a more customized approach, and that is exactly what the toolkit does. So, when we look at sustainability, it comes in many names. It gets confused with many other things as well. But when you talk about sustainability, we're talking very much about ESG. We're talking about responsible business. We're talking about corporate responsibility. Those are some of the words that are interlinked. Okay, so without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'll take you through the entire website. Okay, just bear with me for a while. Okay. So this was just launched this afternoon by Sarawak Energy, the group CEO, Yang Bagi Datuk Syarbini, in a ceremony that was held this afternoon. So you are one of the very few who are actually going to witness what this toolkit is going to be all about. So the Maju framework was actually designed to help SMEs identify and leverage sustainability as a source for growth and adapt to globalization. And I think really today the opportunity for Malaysian business, especially for a country like Malaysia, where we actually now have to look at growth beyond our own shores. So I think this is very, very apt, especially given that ASEAN today is quite challenged in terms of attaining the global goals. In fact, in a recent report, it was stated that ASEAN countries are actually regressing on the global goals. So it has become very, very urgent for ASEAN to actually look at taking on sustainability more seriously. Also, the fact that with the global pandemic, I think what governments want to do today, not only governments, but I think what people want to do today is actually look at how they can dig deeper into using natural capital to actually fill up their coffers. Okay, so without further ado, let's go with the first tab. What we have here, if you were to go to ungc.org/toolkit, you will reach to this website, which we've designed with a very simple interface. So we have the various toolkits, but let me just scroll down a little. So over here, what we've done is that we've created the business case for you to actually look at why you need to actually embark on a sustainability journey on your own, especially for SMEs. SMEs make up about 98% of the economy, the Malaysian economy. They contribute that much, on top of also being a major employer. They are also a source for innovation. So the business case for sustainable SMEs are very, very strong. They're very, very clear. One is that because today, as you would have, if you had joined our earlier session today on tapping sustainable finance, I think a lot of those people in the financial industry are actually looking and leveraging on ESG as a way to maintain their own risk. Right here in Malaysia, even Bank Negara has actually called for financial institutions to actually look at them being accountable for climate risk. That's number one. Number two is that sustainable businesses, I think the proof is there that they continue to outperform companies that don't actually practice sustainability or don't even run an ethical business. This point is very, very important simply because if you were to look at companies like Grameen Bank, you were to look at Adidas, were to look at Denon, they all have very, very strong sustainability practice and governance, which actually makes them stronger, especially in terms of the eyes of investors and also from the market perception. Very, very strong. And then, of course, you have brands which actually do very well simply because I think having a very strong sustainability or even having very strong relationships that you build with your customers actually helps with your brand reputation. That's number 3. And lastly, of course, number 4, and there are many, many on top of the 4 that I'm mentioning here, is that it actually, sustainability actually drives innovation. Especially if I were to give you an example today, when you look at the situation that we are in, we have no other choice, but we have to actually innovate in order for us to survive the future. So sustainability is really a catalyst for innovation. Okay. Then on the other hand, we look at have a cursory look at what the Maju framework is all about. So the Maju framework, basically, of course, it's based on the word Maju, as in advance in English, is actually the appropriate letters actually mean something. So M is for mission. This is where you actually start to plan your mission. You start to rethink. And then the activities is where you actually put the tires to the ground, basically where the tires hit the tarmac. So this is where your sustainability activities actually gain traction. And then under justify, what happens is that this is where you actually look at how you are going to not only report or make disclosures on your sustainability efforts, but this is also where you talk to your stakeholders in terms of telling them what you have actually achieved. And then, of course, last but not least, we have what we call the upgrade phase, which is really what it's all about, is actually creating, setting higher benchmark for yourself, because sustainability is actually an endless journey. You continuously need to actually not only upgrade, but you have to look at how you're going to innovate over the longer term. So what we've done here is that we've got various tools, and we have lots of templates, guidebooks to help you with your journey. If you were to complete your mission, activity, justify, and upgrade, if you do it diligently, and of course, if you were to add a bit flavor, taking from other examples, I think the SME or the entrepreneur would be able to come up with quite a decent roadmap for sustainability. And I think very much that was what the Maju framework was designed. Okay, so at the bottom, what we have is that we've curated sustainability related videos so that you can actually learn about what sustainability is all about. And more importantly, what sustainability is not, because a lot of times people start to get confused over the internet because there's a whole lot of content that you will find out there. So rather than actually make things clearer for you, it just might end up making you more confused than you were before. So I think curating information, curating content today is a necessary activity. And what we have done here is we have done that homework for you. We've curated some of the videos that we found to be useful to our audience. And this is going to be continuously upgraded. So this is not going to remain static. It's not going to be like this for the next 1-2 years, but rather as and when people start using this toolkit, we will actually add so that they grow in terms of their knowledge, the maturity of their knowledge. Okay, so that's about it in terms of the front page. Now we go and dig deeper and we start to go into mission. Okay, so mission really is where you actually set the foundation for helping to realize sustainability aspirations. So this is where actually you start to make plans. And then of course, if you were to look at the mission, it is really about If you are already running a business, a successful or maybe even a medium scale business, I think this is really the opportunity for you to actually to for you to rethink and then perhaps redesign and also redeploy your resources in order to come up with a more sustainable business model. And most importantly is that the easiest way for you to ensure that you are moving true north or moving in the right direction is actually to align yourself to the sustainable development goals, because the sustainable development goals is the agenda, uh, the global agenda up to 2030. So we are today in the year 2020, and it's just another 10 years before we are supposed to have achieved the sustainable development goals by 2030. So complete this journey. So we've got a lot of tools and templates. So let's deep into them right now. So under the toolkit, under Maju, we have 6 toolkits for you here. One is the sustainability SWOT analysis. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the traditional or classic SWOT analysis. Then we have sustainable SME agile culture. I think today you can't have a conversation with anyone, especially in the HR, in startups, without talking about agile culture, and that's very very important. And then we have the sustainability management framework. I'm going to go a little bit deeper on this because, as I mentioned earlier, the sustainability management framework actually encapsulates everything that you're going to see here in the toolkit. The fourth tool is the decision making matrix. This actually, although it's a very common, very popular matrix, but not a lot of people are actually familiar or even know that such a matrix exists. And then we have the one-page sustainable business canvas. This is a tool that I particularly like because it makes very easy the work of sharing your business ideas, your vision, your mission with other people. And any good company would actually have their employees remember the one-page sustainable business canvas by heart, because then you would have the greatest salesman for your company if you were to get each and every one of your employees to actually adopt the one-page sustainable business canvas. And the last but not least, under mission, which is actually the most one of the most important thing in sustainability, is the materiality tool. The materiality tool looks at actually how you are going to scour through your stakeholders, the people that you work with, the people that you supply to, the people that supply to you. This is actually about managing the relationships that you have with them, especially from a business perspective, how your business actually impacts on social and environmental concerns or dimensions. Okay, so let's take a deep dive into the SWOT analysis. So it's as easy as this. So we will continuously update. So rather than provide you with a one-time download link, so what we've done is we've linked it to our um, Google folder, because we'll be putting a lot more tools in this folder. So this is going to be a live folder. So the sustainability SWOT analysis. So we have the user guide here. I'll just open the user guide. So it's quite extensive. So it explains everything you need to know about the sustainability SWOT analysis, which was actually developed by World Resources Institute. So we have the why use it, then we have the template. So we go through the basic who, what, why, when, where, how of the sustainability SWOT. So how it's used and so on and so forth. I'll take you, I'll give you a closer look at the tool itself. So as I mentioned, this is not going to be a real workshop, because a workshop will actually produce an output. But basically what we're looking at is the sustainability SWOT analysis. What it really is actually the classical SWOT smack in the middle. but it is then layered with two other components, which is environmental, social challenges and big trends, which is on your left hand side. And then you have the priorities and actions. So this sustainability SWOT analysis was really designed actually so that the environmental and social dimensions are actually put right in front of you to consider when completing the SWOT analysis. Uh, Actually, it is possible to use the current SWOT analysis as it is, but however, that is not the practice. This sustainability SWOT analysis developed by the World Resources Institute was designed to actually facilitate your thinking and focus on environmental and social sustainability. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the materiality tool. Materiality is basically what I would consider the foundation of any good sustainability practice, because it is through materiality tool, or it is through the materiality that you actually identify and prioritize what your sustainability goals or ambitions are. And they are not done in isolation. So this is not something that you want to do, but this is actually basically what others want you to do, which is actually more important than what you want. So let's have a look at it. So the sustainability, so the materiality assessment guide basically takes you through the introduction to materiality, what it is, what it does, what are the benefits, why it's relevant, and how, if you're ready to begin, how to actually complete uh, the tool. So I'm just going to take you through this very quickly. So the first thing that you do is step one, because there are really actually 5 steps for you to actually complete this. And this, I think, is something that not a lot of SMEs do. And this is actually, if anything at all, on top of the SWOT analysis, sustainability SWOT analysis, this is one of the first tools that you need to actually complete. So step one, since materiality is all about impact, so I think it's very important. So it is very important for you to actually identify what are the indicators to the impact that your business actually produces. So number one is you need to identify your stakeholders, and you do this by actually, as I mentioned, you do this by talking to the people around you, especially related to business. We're not talking just about your customers, because that's only looking at it more from a marketing angle. But when we talk about materiality, we're talking about your suppliers. We're talking about the people around you, or if you're operating within a certain environment, it would be the neighbors around that environment. Say, for example, if you are running a factory that produces furniture, you may actually produce a lot of noise. So your stakeholders would actually be your neighbors in the surrounding area. So you also need to actually consider and actually talk to them. You're also talking about the suppliers for your raw materials, the wood that you actually use to carve furniture. You're talking also about the forestry department, for example. So is going to be very, very extensive. So you don't need to worry about it. Be as extensive as you like, but then the trick is always to actually look at how you can collapse them into smaller groupings. So if you have, say, for example, you can actually group them, one as suppliers, the other one as NGOs, the other one as authorities, for example. So that's how you actually identify your stakeholders. The second step is actually to identify the indicators. So once you've spoken to your stakeholders, the practice is actually to carry out a survey, and this has got to be done as simple as possible, simply because if you become too complex with your questions, then you're not going to be able to come to a meaningful conclusion in terms of what your materiality issues are, especially pertaining to your stakeholders. So what you like to do here is actually carry out a survey, and best if the survey is actually quantitative. So you send out surveys, you design the survey, you send it out to them, then you take it back, and then you can actually tabulate the result and then give it a score. And this is how you actually plot them along the matrix here. After you do the survey, then you start to rank the matrix. So as you can see here, the matrix actually looks from low to high in terms of significance of social, environmental, and economic impact. So this is just how significant that the impact of your business is on the social and environment and economic. And then the influence of stakeholders. So if you're talking about, say for example, again in the case of you are manufacturing furniture, for example, real wood furniture, then your locals or even the forestry department, for example, may be one of your biggest stakeholders. Or it could even be one of the NGOs, say, for example, WWF could actually be one of your biggest stakeholders. So at the end of the day, once you've actually started to rank uh, your stakeholders according to the indicators, uh, where you should be focusing on is actually boxes 7, 9, or 8, with the 9 being the most important and urgent materiality issue that you actually should be looking at. So that basically is uh, the materiality issue, and you can do the same thing with the sustainable development goals. So you could use the sustainable development goals as one other measure, and this is basically a simulation of what the materiality assessment is for Malaysia in terms of the SDGs. So this simulation here is not something that we just plucked from the sky, but this was actually based on the report that was done, or the voluntary report that was done in 2018. So that's the materiality matrix. Again, I think it's important that it is the foundation. Materiality matrix or assessment is the foundation of any good sustainability practice. Bear that in mind. Okay, a closer look at the template. This is what it looks like. So what we've done is that we've done a simulation here for you. But on the next page, we have a blank template that you can download and print for yourself. So that would be the same template that we're using across our toolkit, where we will provide you with a sample and, where possible, an empty template for you to fill up. Okay, let's go over to. We also have short videos here for you, which are basically instructional in nature. Now, this is actually one of my favorite subjects. Sorry about that. This is about agile culture. Now, agile culture is, I think, one of the most prevalent cultures that we need to adopt basically today. It's not so much that it is actually prevalent in terms of its application in companies today, but we need to actually be moving towards agile culture simply because um, we live in a world that is today, in the wake of the pandemic, we live in a world where our resources have been stretched really, really thin, and therefore we need everyone to be working as effectively as possible. We need to raise our performance levels, and one of the ways that we can do that is actually by adopting an agile culture approach. Of course, when you talk to people in the software industry, they're looking at agile culture more from a perspective of developing software. But agile has actually caught on, the agile manifesto caught on, and they have adapted it to agile HR, agile project management, and all sorts of agile approaches, and in various industries. So the Agile Culture Handbook basically is built for small yet mighty SMEs. Uh, the adage here basically is, it doesn't matter if you're small, but if you are an agile company, you actually increase your performance, your capacity, your capability by having very good strong agile culture movement in your organization. So we go through the introduction, and then we go into the sense making and so on and so forth. But I think most importantly, what I want to talk to you about agile culture is that how it is very important today in the context of the way where we are going today. I think when we talk about companies looking at taking this in the aftermath of COVID-19, looking at it as a way to actually rethink, reinvent, and also redeploy resources, agile culture actually comes to mind as being very, very important because today, with AI coming on board, I think there were talks by World Economic Forum, World Trade Organization saying that there is going to be a shift in terms of how human beings are going to function or the role of human beings in the future economy. Therefore, because we live in this VUCA environment today where things are very, very fluid, today nobody expected COVID. There was actually talk, it was actually a black swan event. There were people talking about it, but it was one of those things that people have heard about, people know about it, but they don't really know what is the impact of the potential impact that the black swan event could actually bring. But I guess today we know that that black swan event has actually really actually changed the way we are going to approach life as we now know it. So bearing in mind that the future today is still unstable, even when we talk about the confluence of mega trends coming together, when we talk as a result, we now actually have what we call this continuous VUCA environment, and it is only expected to actually solidify or it's only expected to land by sometime in 2030. But that, of course, not having taken the black swan event into consideration. Now, I'd like to surmise one thing. A lot of people were saying, a lot of sustainability pundits were saying that this COVID-19 is really actually an opportunity. But I would like to see it as actually, and I think we should actually look at it as actually an ultimatum for us to actually change our ways. So rather than an opportunity which suggests that things are going to happen again, we are going to be presented with this opportunity again. Well, I think that is being a little bit too comfortable because I think what's going to happen is that if we don't actually change our ways, I think we will actually disappear. The human race will actually disappear in a much shorter cycle than many believe actually. Okay, I tend to go off tangent. Sorry about that, but I am very, very passionate about sustainability and the fate of mankind. So coming back to agile culture, so it is very, very important because we cannot actually look at planning for the future. Yes, a lot of people say you got to plan for the midterm, the long term. You need to do generational thinking and planning. But I think COVID-19 has done one thing is that it has told us that we need to actually make our plans on the go. Yes, we need to have at least some vision of where we want to go, but I think planning for the long term may not really be the best idea right now, simply because there are challenges that we need to actually prioritize, that we need to be solved now. So it's better that we focus on how we are going to get ourselves out of the mess that we are in. And then by that time, perhaps new things would have come, the world would have changed, and then we would have to redevelop and we have to rethink our plans again. Okay, so which is why agile culture is very important. So in this toolkit, we provided you with what we call the development matrix for agile culture. So using this development matrix, you are able to actually not only identify where you are, also where you should want to be in terms of the levels of maturity and also in terms of various components in terms of your well-being, in terms of your leadership, in terms of your collaboration, collaborative spirit, and so on and so forth, partnerships, for example. So that basically is the agile culture. And I've worked in corporate for quite a number of years, and it surprises me because sometimes the bigger they get, the less they get done. And this is actually quite an interesting story, which actually happened in India. There was a very big software company that, due to failing circumstances, had to close down the company. It was very, very famous. So immediately when people heard that the employees of these companies were being laid off, recruiters from other companies were already waiting at the gate to actually hire these people. So they started hiring. But what they found out was that these people couldn't do much because they were not jack of all trades. They were only master of one, which then is not something that smaller startups or small businesses actually can use, because they don't have the need for a specialist in one particular area like large companies often do or often need. So, which is why in the future of business, in the future economy, agile culture is going to be very, very important, because you need to have employees which are able to actually adapt to the changing business situations. Not only the employees, but also the organization as a whole being made up of employees. So agility is very, very important there because of the very fluid environment. So in our uh, agile culture guide, we also have listed down some of the essentials for transformation. So we look at the kind of mindset that you actually need to create, the difference between having a fixed mindset and an agile mindset. We also look at how you are going to organize teams, which are the teams which are higher in performance in terms of how you govern them. So in an agile matrix or in an agile culture organization, a lot of decentralization of authority actually now resides with the employees, so that they are able to manage and they are able to come up with their own targets first. And then you have the new role of management. So the old management rule book, you can throw that out, because the new agile culture requires a different set of agile managers that think differently, that behave differently. And of course, I think the key in the changing role of management is trust. Trust is extremely important, because I think, especially here in Asia, I think that old traditional manager, I think, is still prevalent, and we need to change that if we are going to actually keep up with time. If we are going to provide solutions to customers faster, if we want to make faster decisions, we need actually to look at how we are going to adopt principles of agile culture. You are not going to be able to do it overnight, so this is going to be something quite challenging. But leadership is important in order for you to drive an agile culture. So we also look at the agile behaviors. What sort of agile behaviors are prevalent in an agile employee or an agile organization overall. We look at the transformation steps. So we've provided a very, very cursory glance at the various steps that you need to take in order to embark on a agile transformation journey. So it comes from establishing strong case for action, you designing to designing the dream team, and you don't actually have to convert the entire organization, get everyone on board agile from the word go, but you could actually start up with smaller teams first. Create an elite team to actually do the SWOT analysis, use the toolkit that we've provided here. It could actually be based on that, so that they can work on a matrix setup where they can actually look at how they are going to deploy sustainability within your organization. So you can start with a smaller team, but run on agile culture. And then you have the envisioning stage, where you start to look at what would success be for the team. Then you look at making announcements. This is actually keeping everyone apprised of what's happening in terms of winning or losing or progress reports. And it's just not, you just don't actually have to report to your managers or your superiors, because when it comes to agility, we are talking about transparency. We want to talk about celebrating with others. We need the help of others simply because agility or agile culture brings in the element of collaboration into the picture very strongly. And then clearing the pathway. This is actually when we look at removing the obstacles. So this is where leadership is very important to actually help clear the path for the agile team, especially if you're going to build a pioneer team. They would need a lot of leverage. And then you need learning teams. This is actually another concept that is very, very weak in Malaysia, especially among Asian countries. And we're talking about learning organizations. So you need to create learning teams that actually learn from their mistakes, learn from failure. Because if you are not able to capitalize on learning, then you are not able to actually improve performance. So this is why part of the agile culture actually brings the concept of learning organization into the culture. And then we have delivery of strong results. Basically what this says is, of course, this is actually number 6 rather than number 7. But delivery of strong results is also a very, very important factor because you need to convince people. Of course, when you talk about agility, when you talk about agile culture, when you try and sell it to your boss or when you try to sell it to your board of directors, it is actually a concept. And you are not able to actually come up with a proof of concept situation or a proof of concept case study because it just doesn't happen that way. But what you can do is actually, which is why it's very important for you to actually approach agile culture or selling agile culture by delivering strong performance and strong results. No matter how small, but I think it's important for people to know that, this can work. We can actually start building on this small success to build on bigger and bigger and bigger successes. So that is very, very important in developing agile culture. So that's basically about agile culture. So this is already 2:43, and we have hardly actually gone through. We've only gone through only 2 or 3 frameworks. And then under mission, we have the one-page sustainability canvas. I'm going to tell you the next thing is that I'm very passionate about this. By the end, you're going to say that I'm passionate about everything. But I think the one-page sustainability or sustainable business canvas is actually one of my favorites. And I actually put this to good use during the time when I was in corporate. Um, this is actually based on what they call the BMC, the business model canvas, but it was modified to actually then look again at how it can actually superimpose or provide another lens for sustainability using environmental, social, and economic dimensions. I know it's a little small, so I'm gonna try and enlarge it. Okay, so basically it comes in 11 parts and starts with 2 on top, which is the positive and negative impacts. So the sustainable friends basically are the stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders? These are the people who are going to provide you support. These are people who are going to lift you, people who are going to carry you in terms of in the promotion of the sustainability. So this is very important. This is where you identify. And the great thing about this sustainable business canvas is that when you use all the tools that we've provided, you can actually collate them and then plot it inside here, because by working on the various tools that we've provided, you can actually directly take the input from those and plunk it right into the sustainable business canvas that you see here. Okay, so when we talk about sustainable friends, we're really talking about stakeholders. So So what you need to do is you need to look at people who are able to actually help you. Again, as I mentioned, help you with your sustainability journey. And you can identify these people basically through the materiality assessment or materiality matrix. When you go out and do your stakeholder survey, this is where you look at friends, when you look at collaborators, and so on and so forth. So that can actually help you identify the sustainable friends that you see here. Then you have sustainable value. So this is basically where you look at what are your value propositions. It can be technology, it can be your method or service. Um, because otherwise, you see, what happens is that if I were, again, a manufacturer of if I were a carpenter, if I manufactured furniture using real wood, for example, then I would actually need to look at how I can actually create additional value from my products. And I was actually thinking about this just today because not too long ago, while I moved homes, I had this very, very nice Jati, or was it teak furniture, dining table, but it was broken at some parts. But then, I really didn't have to sell it because, and that was my mistake really, because it can actually be repaired. You can actually dismantle just one part and then commission someone to actually just get that one part replaced. So, you could actually come up with a new business model looking at how you can apply, for example, the circular economy concept in furniture making, how you are going to actually ensure that those products that you manufacture using wood are then returned back to you, returned back into the ecosystem and produced into other things. So that's just one idea that, SMEs can actually look. And we've also provided the tools in terms of what are the appropriate concepts or actions that you can take. So so yeah, we'll probably go through that in a short while. And then we look at sustainable tech and resources. This is basically leveraging on technology and resources that you have that can actually be a substitute for the whatever that you need today. So rather say, for example, rather than this is maybe a poor example of it, but what we are doing today, which is actually conducting this seminar come workshop remotely using StreamYard. This is actually one of the ways in which we can actually leverage on more sustainable resources or technology to actually help with our business. And then we have the sustainable value offering. This is really looking at what problems that we can help our customers solve through our products or services. So what are the functions and form of our product or service? Can we transform sustainability into customer value? So these are the propositions really. And then we have the sustainable customer relations. This is basically looking at building up to satisfy customer expectations, especially in terms of from a sustainability viewpoint. We want to build our relationship with our clients, especially ones that are like-minded. So in other words, for SMEs that actually have developed a sustainability plan, have actually then rolled out that sustainability activities and products, the minute that you start to have customers, especially loyal customers to your product, these are what we call the gems of customers that we really need to take care of. And these are going to be what we call the sustainable customer relations. How are we going to actually build on that? How are we going to build social capital around it? How are we going to leverage on the relationship so that customers might be able to advise us? We could actually consult them in terms of how the next product should be. So that is basically what sustainable customer relations are. For some of the SMEs out there, do you know the business model that Mi actually takes, Xiaomi? The amazing thing about Xiaomi is that they never produce anything at all before, how is it? They never produce anything at all until they've sold a number of products. So in other words, what they do is that they only start prototyping once they have the orders in. And I think that's a wonderful concept where customers trust Xiaomi, and Xiaomi basically says, okay, what do you guys want? Then somebody will say, I want ABC. Okay, then Xiaomi will design ABC and take orders. So before they even roll out the first product, ABC, out of their factory, they have already 1 million customers. And I think that is a fantastic model that Xiaomi actually uses. And this, I suppose, is only possible because of the relationships that they have with their customers. Okay, then we have the responsible customers. Basically, they are customers who make them join to be more sustainable. So we are looking at actually leveraging, not only leveraging on our current sustainable customer relations, but we're looking at how we can actually win more responsible customers. And then you have the sustainable channel. These are basically the distribution channel, how we are going to look at maximizing, how we are going to do our best to actually communicate our sustainability agenda to others. Okay, and then you have the end of life, which is basically looking at how are we going to design end of cycle into our product so that it just doesn't become something that you throw away. All right. Okay. We've got a few questions. We've got a long way to go, but I'm really excited about this because there's so much to share. But we already have questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to take on some questions. Okay. Okay. The questions, let's see. Is the SME toolkit available to all companies, or we should be registered with UN Global Compact? Very, very, very good question. The SME SDG toolkit was actually conceived and designed with the idea of actually doing good. And that is why Sarawak Energy came forward when they heard about the idea of coming up with this toolkit. They actually jumped at there and they said that, okay, we will support this endeavor simply because in acknowledgement of their own supply chain, which they were trying to transform. So they said, I think this is actually a very good start. So they decided, okay, let's just, we'll support it, make it free, make it open source. So yes, you can actually use the toolkit for free. You only need to register. In fact, now we've actually opened it up. You don't even have to register now, but it is actually free, and you don't have to become a member of a global compact. But we would prefer that you then look at affiliating with us so that you can leverage on some of our knowledge, and we could also then network with you. Number two, how to obtain the toolkits online. Well, that's very easy. So what you need to do is just go to the website as I showed you. Then there's the download toolkit. You click there. It's again open source. Anybody with the link can actually access it. Then you can download it. The third question, how to access all the SMEs videos on these toolkits? When you say access the SME videos on these toolkits, basically what you do is it's actually published on YouTube. So all you need to do is just click on the video and the video will play. But if your question is, can I download the videos? No, you can't. But you could probably then find one of the tools as a downloader. I don't know. Okay. Question number 4. The toolkits are not located on the UN Global Compact Malaysia site or on the general UNGC site. How to access this? It is actually, but because it is a microsite. So if you were to go to UNGC Malaysia site, it comes, in fact, we just overhaul our website. It comes under resources. That is where you will find not only resources for SME SDG toolkits, but we also have various other resources for you. Okay, the toolkits are not located. So go on to ungcmalaysia.org. I repeat, ungcmalaysia.org. okay, .org, and you will find it under one of the tabs, and if I'm not mistaken, it's resource. All right, then the next question is, what is the website to access all the toolkits? Yeah, same thing. But if I would be able to share my screen, I would actually be able to share with you the website. But basically, uh, it's ungcmalaysia.org/toolkit/. That's it. That's how you access the toolkit. Okay, so we've got a little bit more time here. Um, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go back to the Maju framework and quickly take you through the other components under Maju. So we had under mission, then the next stage would be activity. So this is actually where you start to look at designing or coming up with activities. So for that purpose, we've got a design thinking essentials guide. So this is basically a guide on how you can actually conduct your own design thinking, not by actually taking on consultants or trainers, which can be quite expensive, but very worth your while because they would be able to actually coach you as well. But for early starters, you can actually use the design thinking essentials to actually guide you on how to approach design thinking. And then we have the responsible certifications map. A certification is very, very important if you're going to take advantage of, if you're going to actually declare to people that you are actually a responsible company. One of the fastest way is actually to use certification. And I like this picture here because it basically tells the whole story. So sustainability related certification really is, as it says here, closing the distance to assurance, because uh, customers want assurance, and companies that provide such assurance or certification actually does the hard job or the difficult job of ensuring everything is in order, so that they present you with a certificate that actually tells or makes the customer confident that it is basically what it is that they claim to be. So it's basically a shortcut for assurance. So in this sustainability related certification guide, so we've provided you with the basic knowledge on what is certification and even what is sustainable certification. And I think most importantly to me is how to choose the right sustainability certification program. So that's very important. And we've provided you with all the famous or more popular certification programs around the world. The reason that we've provided those around the world simply because there is actually one or two ways to go about it. But if you're looking at, because when you go for global certification, you not only cover all countries, but you are also going to cover Malaysia. But if you were to go for a certification based in Malaysia, which may not have any affiliations outside of Malaysia, then it would actually be more for the local market. So that's on certifications map. So we provide you with a guide on the how to, where to in terms of certification. Then under same activity, we also have the sustainability actions map. Now, after you've gone through the mission of coming up with your plans, coming up with your governance, coming up with your resources, KPIs, and so on and so forth, the next step would be to actually put those ideas into some sort of project for you to execute to gain sustainability impact. And this is where we have provided you with many topics that you can actually use in order to approach sustainability, whether it is from a green concept, whether it is from an economic concept, or whether we're talking about a social concept or application. So you've got carbon reduction. Let's just take a peek into the folder. Under carbon reduction, so we have the practitioner's guide to a low carbon society, what it is. We also have tools on how to calculate and lower your carbon emissions. We have carbon footprinting for beginners, greenhouse gas reporting for small businesses, all tailored for the small business in mind. Now, the sad thing about us is that here in Malaysia is that we don't have that many tools that are created, not a lot of research papers that are actually created for local consumption. But because we are not actually leaders in that field, so we tend to actually look at other more developed economies, developed countries to actually come up with all this. However, Malaysia actually having basically adhering to being part of Commonwealth. So some of the standards that you see here actually come from the UK. And you would also find in various parts of our toolkit that some of the tools may actually be designed for larger or bigger corporations. But I would say that it's okay simply because we also want you to actually to aspire to become bigger. So looking at how the big boys actually do it is actually just a learning curve to also share with you what the potential is in terms of sustainability, how big you can go, and so on and so forth. So that's some of the action maps, but that's just only under one carbon reduction. So we've got concept on circular economy, on consumption. Malaysia hasn't got any data on consumption pertaining to the SDGs. When we talk about renewable energy, there's a huge market for renewable energy. In fact, it's not really that we still need a lot more investments in that area. So a lot more things that you can go through in our toolkit. I would encourage you to actually make use of the toolkit. Should you have any questions, write to info@ungcmalaysia.org. We'd be very happy to actually entertain your queries. We also have an FAQ there, so should you have any questions, feel free to actually ask. Thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed yourself.